Welcome to the Padres Postgame Show on the Padres Radio Network. Coming up, we'll deliver a full recap of today's game, including highlights from the biggest moments. We'll take a trip down to the manager's office to hear from Mike Shildt. Plus, we'll bring you scores from around Major League Baseball. The Padres Postgame Show starts now on the Padres Radio Network.
Welcome into our post-game show here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today on this Sunday, the Mets 11 and the Padres 6 as the Mets sweep a three-game series from the Padres on this Sunday afternoon with the defeat. The Padres, who entered this weekend 2 games above 500, well, they'll leave town, leave New York City 1 game below at 37-38. Mets improved to 33-37. They've won 5 in a row. They're playing some really good baseball right now, and the Padres now head to Philadelphia to face the best team in the National League for a 3-game series starting tomorrow. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. As we wrap this one up, we'll have all the radio highlights for you, recap this game from start to finish, and we'll also hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt coming up in just a little bit, so stay tuned for all of that. Some initial thoughts on this one. This game really boiled down to, in my mind, a couple of 4-run Met innings. The Padres did something they hadn't done all series in the first 2 games, and they scored a run in the first inning. Manny Machado RBI single to make it 1-0. And we talked about it pregame. You felt like today the Padres needed a big start from Dylan Cease, and quite frankly, they just didn't get it here today. It was a really rough first inning for Dylan Cease. The Padres had a 1-0 lead, but then Francisco Lindor leadoff home run. Just like that, it's 1-1. The Mets end up scoring 4 runs in that first inning, a 3-run home run off the bat of Pete Alonso, and in 4 batters in the bottom half of the first inning, it went from a 1-0 Padre lead to a 4-1 Met lead. So that did not go well in the first inning for Dylan Cease. The Mets end up getting 3 more runs in the 4th inning, make it 7-1. Padres scratch across the run in the 5th inning to make it 7-2. And then the part of this game that you really liked if you're a Padres fan, and you hope that it can at least carry some momentum into Philadelphia. The Padres putting together a 4-run 8th inning, stringing some hits together, taking advantage of some miscues by the Mets defense, and all of a sudden, we had a 7-6 game. But then Jeremiah Estrada, who's been very, very good this year, he had one of his rougher outings in his early Padre career. Similar type inning in the 8th inning, where there was a leadoff home run for Luis Torrens, then McNeil a single, Bader a single, Lindor walks, RBI single for Nimmo, 2-run single later in the inning for Alonso. And just like that, the Mets would get 4 runs of insurance. It went from a 7-6 Met lead to an 11-6 Met lead, and the Padres end up falling by that final score of 11-6. So here today, it was a little bit of a mix of everything, right? Dylan Cease obviously had a really tough outing. His final line, 3 2/3 innings, 7 earned runs given up. You felt like the Padres needed a better version of Dylan Cease here today. And while the Padres did score 4 runs in the 8th inning to make it a 1-run game, and they deserve some credit for that, and hopefully that means something as you head into Philadelphia against a great Phillies team. But the reality is this: in the first 25 innings of this series, the 9 innings on Friday, the 9 innings on Saturday, and the first 7 innings of today's game, so that's 25 total, the Padres had 4 runs in the first 25 innings of this game. And we know in the first 2 games of this series, they had 2 runs, and both of them came on Jackson Merrill's solo home run. So in a way, it was almost offensively a little too late in this one and in this series, and obviously the pitching performances the last couple of days didn't help. Adam Mazur not being able to get out of the 4th inning yesterday, and then the bullpen faltering early when they came in, and then obviously Dylan Cease with one of his tougher outings in a Padre uniform here today in New York. So today it was a little bit of everything, and I was thinking about this series and going back and looking at the first 2 games. I don't know that you can pinpoint this series sweep at the hands of the Mets on any one particular thing. Each of these games was a little bit different. On Friday night, the Padres got great starting pitching from Matt Waldron. He was great. 7 innings, 2 runs given up. The problem was that the Padres got one run on the Merrill home run. They had opportunities late, like in the ninth inning when they had the tying run on second base, nobody out to tie the game. They could not do it. The Padres ended up scoring one run on 5 hits. And then yesterday, it was a mix of the offense not doing much of anything, just the Merrill home run again, a solo shot. The Padres had 2 hits yesterday, but also the fact that Major couldn't get out of the 4th inning, and then Brito gives up a home run, and then later De Los Santos gives up a home run. So it wasn't just on the offense, but there was some faltering on the pitching side of things as well. And then here today you had a tough outing for Dylan Cease. Look, when your starting pitcher goes 3 2/3 innings, gives up 7 runs, that's going to be a hard game to win. So look, all in all, you zoom out at it, and back and forth, up and down we go, right? 37-38. The Padres now sit at the end of this weekend, at the end of June 16th. And here's the part where the Padres, and we'll dive more into this a little bit later in our post-game coverage because I do want to get to Mike Shildt and the highlights. But here's the part of it where the Padres are just at a really crucial moment of their season, I think. And I don't want to make too much of it, but I don't want to ignore it as well, because I've really tried, if you've listened to me the last week or two, to not get, I wouldn't say overly emotional, but, branch out and talk big picture a lot, because there's been such an up and down nature, one step forward, one step back nature to this season, to this point, right? But here's the thing. We talked before this 13-game stretch began against all sub-500 teams, the Angels, D-backs, A's, and Mets. 13 games against those teams. We talked about it being an opportunity for the Padres to beef up a little bit, to rack up some wins. Well, they only went 5-8 in that 13-game stretch when you look at it. And now the Padres will have to play 7 games in a row, 3 against the Phillies, 4 against the Brewers. The Phillies have the best record in the NL. The Brewers are in first place in the NL Central, have the 3rd best record in the NL. So this is a crucial stretch coming up for the Padres, where if you don't play well, you could go from hovering around 500 to a few games below, at least. So it's going to be an interesting next week or so for this team, as they now sit 37-38, and the schedule is about to get a whole lot harder in the Phillies and the Brewers, 2 of the top teams in the NL. I suppose the good thing is that the Padres have played well against good teams this year. They're going to have to do it again this coming week. When we come back, we'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll take you through the radio highlights. Again, the final score here today as the Padres get swept by the Mets. The Mets 11 and the Padres 6. More post-game after this. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Padres fall 11-6 to the New York Mets. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we'll wrap this one up. We'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt coming up in just a moment, so stay tuned for that. We'll recap this game from start to finish, and we'll get through our daily awards and much, much more to do on what is a gorgeous Sunday afternoon here in America's finest city. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Hope you're having a great day despite not such a good weekend for the Padres in New York as they get swept by the New York Mets. And I know in our opening segment we talked about the offense really up until that eighth inning in this series struggling a whole lot. And you look at the numbers for some of the Padres' key players offensively this weekend, 3 games in New York. I'll just run through some of the numbers here. Fernando Tatis Jr. was only 1 for 12. Manny Machado was 1 for 11. Jake Cronenworth was 1 for 10 in this series. Ha-Seong Kim was 1 for 9 in this series. Jurickson Profar had 3 hits. Luis Arraez had 4 hits. Jackson Merrill had a good series, obviously, with the 2 home runs, 3 hits total. But you look at Fernando, Manny, Cronenworth, and Kim, just a combined 4 hits in the span of 3 games, and that kind of tells a lot of the story right there. The Padres really, aside from that 4-run 8th inning, having a tough time offensively in this game. But like I said in the opening segment, I don't think it was all about the offense when you look at the 3 games in totality, because obviously today Dylan Cease giving up 7 runs in less than 4 complete innings. That did not help the cause for the Padres in this series finale. Let's go back to Citi Field in New York and hear some post-game reaction.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Mike, you guys had a rally at the end there. How difficult is it to come back when down 7-1?
Yeah, no, it's not a recipe. We've done it. Looks like we were going to do it again. Just couldn't get a shutdown inning a couple times today. But yeah, you're down 7-1. Got a 7-2. Had some chances in that inning to, add on a little bit more. But man, what a great at bats to get us to 7-6. Bader makes a play on Campy's ball. Could have really broke it up and kind of got the lead. But, just great at bats. A lot of heart. Could have easily said, you know what, not our day, not our series, move on. It's been an easy thing to do, but this is not a team that's going to take the easy way out. And just because we don't get the win doesn't mean we didn't throw it all out there, but there's no moral victories. I get that. But guys fought like crazy to grab one. We just we didn't get the lead almost the whole series outside of the first today, and it was short-lived.
The 2 leadoff doubles in the 5th, and you mentioned that inning there, and there were a lot better at bats, obviously, in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
But how much do you look back and you lament kind of the hits that weren't made? You just needed one more.
Yeah, no, you're always going to. I mean, you lose by today ended up being a bigger margin, but you get back into a game or you lose close games, you're always going to lament, what ifs and the at-bats. And, the question you can ask yourself is, are we in a good position to take the at-bats? Are we getting pitches we can handle? And are we putting good swings on? And after that, we all know the game can, can't control where the baseball goes. But, and for the most part, we've done that all year. Your question yesterday was an excellent one relative to, it was an unusual game that the last 4 innings didn't warrant much of anything really, we weren't able to string anything together. The questions asked because it's so rare. So from my seat, it's ultimately all I can ask for is the consistency of competition, the at-bats. But like I said, we've got to start to marry our hitting and our pitching more consistently to make sure that these ruts don't happen and make sure that we continue to do what we've done to put on, good stretches of baseball.
As simple as the fastball command for Dylan?
I haven't had a chance to look at it. I had a little bit of free time, but was watching the game. A more question for him, but probably, like anything, it's just the fastball and the command of the pitches. And, you make mistakes to big league hitters, and they got a nice lineup, and they got some guys swinging the bat over there and just made him pay.
In that 8th inning, did you see a certain approach from the guys down the line that was a little more encouraging compared to the last couple of days, or was it just things falling through?
I think it was a combination. I think the approach has been good. I get the privilege of, I say being in the dugout. I wasn't in the dugout for the 8th, but I get the privilege of being there, hearing the conversations, hearing the communication taking place, and you know, from my seat, and you know, I'm always going to be honest. It's been A plus. I mean, I couldn't be more pleased with our offensive communication and our preparation, and then looking to execute. Some days are easier than others, but you know, consistently having an idea what we're looking to do, and then today's 8th inning, you know, we were able to couple that with results, which is what this game's about. We get it, but I can tell you that the awareness, preparation, professionalism, communication in the dugout with a bunch of seasoned pros has been really, really good.
Did that moment in I believe the 6th, I can't remember, with Manning, did that just kind of feel like the frustration of the past couple of days just sort of boiling over a little bit into one call?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was a carryover necessarily. I mean, there, you know, some pitches, check swing early doesn't go your way, borderline pitch doesn't go your way. There's frustration relative to, you know, listen, we haven't had the results we want at the end of the day on the scoreboard. You know, that can add up as well. So yeah, there's some frustration there, but bottom line is we got to be better. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, nor will I ever say, look, we're going to get frustrated with umpires because we're losing. You know, it can be a result because you are competing here in the moment, like managing the moment, competing his tail off. You know, a big at bat to drive in the run in the first inning. Looking, like I said, to Ace's question, you know, we're down, 5 runs. It's like, no, man, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure out a way to get this back in this thing. So I like the idea that guys are still competing, and it can be a little bit of a frustration point. But ultimately, it's never going to be an umpire's issue. Whether we lose a game or a couple games in a row, it's going to be our issue, and we just got to continue to figure out a way to execute and play consistent baseball, of course. Coupled with our pitching and our offense together.
Kimmy was picked up at second inning. He usually don't pick up so that much. Do you see it was too aggressive, or what did you see?
He's looking to run. I think the timing of it was perfect for them. They executed their play, and he's got a guy who feels like he can run on, and he's done a great job. To your point, he's been aggressive. He's been one of our best base runners and stealers in the last several years, including this one, and he's looking to pick a spot, and just it was a little early, and they made a play on him.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt after this 11-6 loss in New York as the Mets sweep this series from the Padres this weekend. Sam Levitt back with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. What Mike Shildt is referring to there, the question he was asked about, that was in the second inning where Ha-Seong Kim was picked off first base. Mets were up 4-1 at the time, and Kim was picked off first base after reaching there on a fielder's choice. That was the second out of the inning, so not a great base running moment for Ha-Seong Kim there. You heard Mike Shildt talk about his, the way he feels about the offensive approach, and clearly he likes the offensive approach. Look, I think the Padres do deserve credit for what they did in the 8th inning. They did battle back to make it a one-run game, but look, when you're down 7-1, then 7-2, and you're entering an 8th inning and you've got 6 outs to play with, it does not give you much margin for error, right? And the Padres were able to get close to coming all the way back, but they could not ultimately bridge that gap down 7-1 at one point in this game. And we talked about it in the opening segment. They had a nice 8th inning, but offensively in this series, well, entering today's game, they had only 2 runs on 7 hits, and in the first 25 innings of this series, that was everything before the 8th inning today, the Padres had a grand total of 4 runs. So it was not a particularly explosive offensive series, really, until the 8th. And we shall see if the Padres can, at the very least, bring what we saw in the 8th inning into Philadelphia, because let's be honest, they're going to need it. That's a really, really good Phillies team. They hit well, they pitch well, they do just about everything well. They're nearly at 50 wins so far this season. When we come back, we'll recap this game from start to finish. We'll start to give out some of our daily awards. Full out-of-town scoreboard coming up a little bit later as well. Final score in New York on this Sunday, Mets 11, Padres 6. More post-game after this. Our postgame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score on this Sunday, Mets 11 and the Padres 6. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as the Padres get swept this weekend in New York. The Padres fell just 2-1 on Friday, 5-1 on Saturday, and then they fall by a 5-run deficit here today at 11-6. And we've done a lot of talking about it already. We've heard from Padres manager Mike Shildt as well. Padres falling to 37-38 on the year. Mets, don't look now. The Metsies are playing well, 33-37. The Mets, who, I think a lot of people were a couple of weeks ago debating on whether they would be massive sellers or just kind of small sellers at the deadline. Well, don't look now. The Mets have won 5 in a row. They've won 11 of their last 15. And guess what? In this year's National League, where it is just wide open, they're just sitting a couple of games out of a playoff spot. So it's going to be an interesting summer in the NL. Everybody is pretty much in it right now. The Mets playing well, but I guess a good reminder with the Mets that, hey, if you get hot, you can change the fortune of your season pretty quickly. So all it takes is a really good couple of weeks, and the Padres certainly capable of that as well. We'll see what happens as the Padres now travel to Philadelphia to take on the Phillies in the first game of a 3-game series tomorrow. Let's recap how this one went in the Big Apple.
What moments had the biggest impact on today's game? We'll paint you a picture with our game recap on the Padres Radio Network.
The Padres got off to a good start today against Mets starter Tylor Megill. There were runners on first and third with 2 men away for Manny Machado.
Up against Blake Snell. Manny swings here, lines it into left center, and a base hit. Profar in to score. Cronenworth wheeling his way around to third base. RBI single for Manny Machado. His first Father's Day as a dad, and the Padres have a lead for the first time here this weekend.
Padres had a 1-0 lead against Dylan Cease the Padres had a 1-0 lead as Dylan Cease took the mound in the first inning. It was short-lived for Francisco Lindor led off.
1-1 from Dylan Cease. And Lindor hits it in the air to deep right field. Fernando is back. He's at the wall watching this one. Gonna go. Second deck in right field. 3 hits against Dylan Cease. 3 home runs against Dylan Cease for Lindor. Just like that, this game is tied 1-1 in the bottom of the first inning.
Mets weren't done. Brandon Nimmo single. J.D. Martinez walked. Pete Alonso was next.
Pete Alonso stands in, swings at the first pitch, sends it in the air, very deep to left field. Profar is back. He's at the wall looking up. It's going to go over the old wall in left center for Pete Alonso. 15th of the year. This is a 3-run shot, and a couple of first-inning home runs for the Mets have given them a 4-1 lead.
Cease then walked Starling Marte. There was still nobody out, but he proceeded to retire the next 3 in a row. It was still 4-1 in the bottom half of the 4th inning. The Mets would score 3 more runs against Cease. There was a leadoff single, a wild pitch, an RBI double from Harrison Bader, made it 5-1. Another wild pitch got Bader to third base. A sac fly from Francisco Lindor made it 6-1. Then a single, then a 2-out RBI double from J.D. Martinez made it 7-1. That was it for Cease. He went just 3 2/3 innings in this game. He gave up 7 runs in this one. Yuki Matsui got the final out of the 4th inning. Padres would get a run in the top of the 5th inning on an RBI ground out from Jurickson Profar. That did make it 7-2. Then it would stay 7-2 for a while. Matsui pitched a scoreless 5th inning. Stephen Kolek pitched 2 scoreless innings in the 6th and the 7th. Meanwhile, for the Mets, Tylor Megill went 5 innings. It was Adrian Hauser who took the mound in the top of the 8th inning. His 3rd inning of work. Padres down 7-2 at this point. They would rally. Jurickson Profar hit a leadoff single. Jake Diekman came in to replace Hauser. He got a comebacker and threw wild to second base. Padres had runners on first and third with nobody out. Donovan Solano walked. Jackson Merrill then walked with the bases loaded. RBI for Merrill. It was 7-3. David Peralta then brought another run home in that 8th inning with a fielder's choice. It was 7-4. That was it for Diekman. The Mets brought right-hander Drew Smith into the game to face Ha-Sung Kim.
Now the 1-2. Kim swings, hits it in the air to left center field. That's going to get down, and a base hit. Going to find the gap, go all the way to the wall. Solano comes in to score. Peralta held at third. An RBI double for Ha-Sung Kim. And now a 7-5 game here in the 8th.
Luis Campusano then hit a line drive to center. It was caught by Harrison Bader, but good enough to get Peralta in from third base. A sac fly. It was 7-6. We had a one-run game. The Padres scoring 4 runs in the 8th inning. Luis Arraez within single with Kim still on second base. He was held at third. It was a good hold by Padres third base coach Tim Leeper. Starling Marte made a throw that probably gets Kim at home plate. But then Smith struck out Fernando Tatis Jr. to end the inning. So the Padres did score 4 runs in that 8th inning, but they still trailed 7-6. Jeremiah Estrada took the mound in the bottom half of the 8th inning. Luis Torrens led off.
2-1, hit in the air to left center field. That's well struck. Merrill is back on the warning track, fielding for the wall, leaps up, gonna go. Luis Torrens, a home run. Let's get a little bit of space here in the bottom of the 8th inning. It's 8-6.
The rest of the outing did not go well for Estrada. A single, another single, a walk, an RBI single from Brandon Nimmo to make it 9-6, then a 2-run single from Pete Alonso. It was 11-6. Estrada gave up 4 runs on 5 hits. He got just 1 out in that inning. Eniel De Los Santos would complete that inning, but the Mets had an 11-6 lead. In the 9th inning, it was Sean Reed Foley, a 1-2-3 9th inning, and that was that here today. The final score, Mets 11 and the Padres 6. So again, the Padres did trail 7-1 in this game. They got a run in the 5th inning, 4 more in the 8th inning to make it 7-6. Fernando Tatis Jr. had an opportunity with the tying run on third base and 2 outs to maybe tie the game, give the Padres a lead. He could not do it. He struck out. Tough day for Tatis, who was 0 for 5. And after that, the 4-run bottom of the 8th inning against Jeremiah Estrada, and the Mets go on to win it 11-6. Final totals for the Mets: 11 runs, 14 hits, 2 errors. For the Padres, 6 runs, 10 hits, and no errors. Padres back under 500 at 37-38. The Mets improved to 33-37. There were some bright spots, certainly, in this game for the Pods. Let's talk about one of them with our relief pitcher of the game.
Which pitcher was able to come in and slam the door shut? It's time for the relief pitcher of the game in support of the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, providing food assistance to local children, families, and seniors in need. To get help or give help, visit SanDiegoFoodBank.org.
Well, we have an opportunity today to point out some of the positives in this game. And one of them here today, the continued good work of Stephen Kolek, who went 2 scoreless innings in this one. At the time, he ended up keeping it a 7-2 game, so kept it at 5. And look, had the Padres been able to come back all the way, tie it, take a lead, let's say win this game, you're looking at some of these bullpen performances, whether it was Matsui, an inning and a third scoreless, or Kolek, 2 scoreless innings, and you're saying that was a big part of a win, right? Because you kept it at somewhat of a close game at 7-1 and then 7-2. And Kolek was really good. 2 scoreless innings for him, gave up just 1 hit, struck out 2, walked nobody. His 3rd consecutive scoreless outing, it's actually his 5th consecutive scoreless outing. No, actually, I'm wrong about that. I'm all over the place. He did give up a run earlier yesterday against the Mets, so my mistake. 4 out of the last 5 outings for Kolek have been scoreless, but the point stands. Since that really rough appearance against the Royals at the end of May, he has been a lot better, to his credit, and here today, 2 scoreless innings. So he did a nice job keeping it a 7-2 game, and for that reason, Stephen Kolek, our relief pitcher of the game. Keep it on the Padres side of things for that one. When we come back, we'll talk more about this game. We'll also take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. If you want to get a phone call in, you can. 833-288-0973, the phone number as always. Final 11-6, the Padres swept at the hands of the Mets. We'll continue our post-game coverage after this. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Mets 11 and the Padres 6, as the Padres are swept by the Mets this weekend in New York City. Padres will continue this 6-game road trip to Philadelphia. 3 games against the Phillies, then they come back home for the start of a homestand. 4 games against the Brewers to begin that homestand, and it's something we mentioned earlier as we welcome you back into our post-game coverage. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. It's something we talked about earlier in the opening segment, and it's worth repeating again. This is coming up. You really feel like a crucial stretch for the Padres. Now, I said the same thing in a different way about this 13-game stretch. They just finished today all against sub-500 teams. The Padres today finished up a 13-game stretch against the Angels, Diamondbacks, A's, and Mets. The Padres went 5-8 in that 13-game stretch. And look, let's be honest about it. You certainly hope they would have done better in that 13-game stretch because you felt like it was a real opportunity to beef up the record, to pick up some momentum, to rack up some wins. And look, there were moments, right? The sweep of the A's. There were moments, but we also had 2 sweeps mixed into the Angels and the Mets in that 13-game stretch. 5-8 in those 13 games. Here's where it becomes a really crucial stretch in a totally different way for this Padres ball club. They now sit 37-38, and they will play 7 games in a row, 3 against the Phillies, 4 against the Brewers, 2 of the top teams in the NL. The Phillies have the best record in the NL. The Brewers have the 3rd best record in the NL. They're first place in the National League Central. So, look, the good thing, I suppose, is that the Padres have played well against good teams this year, against above 500 teams this year. But now you sit a game below 500, and if this stretch doesn't go well against the Phillies and the Brewers, well, you could find yourself a few games or more below 500 if it doesn't go all that well. So if you are wondering why, not just me, and I'm sure others as well, put such an emphasis on the 13-game stretch this team had against the Angels, D-backs, A's, and Mets, well, it's because the stretch after that wasn't so easy. We're going to play some good teams. And by the way, the Padres were a bit above 500 when that 13-game stretch began. Remember, they had won 2 out of 3 in Kansas City, had that really tough loss in Kansas City on the Sunday, but still were starting a stretch against teams with losing records heading into that series in Anaheim. And then they proceeded to get swept by the Angels. And after that, obviously, they bounced back nicely, but then you sweep the A's and you get swept by the Mets. So the up and down nature of this 2024 season through 75 games, it continues in a not very easy stretch coming up at all for the Padres against 7 games against the Phillies and Brewers, and the Padres begin that stretch tomorrow. Padres fall 11-6 to the Mets on this Sunday. Let's tell you about our player of the game.
Which player had the biggest impact on today's game? Let's find out who is today's player of the game. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Catch every game at Patties and Bites. Plus, enjoy $4 beer every Thursday. Visit valleyviewcasino.com today.
Our player of the game here today. I got to go with Pete Alonso. 5 RBIs on the day. Had the home run, 3-run shot in the first inning to give the Mets a 4-1 lead. He would have a 2-run base hit later in the inning to kind of put the icing on the cake of a Met win. It's got to be Pete Alonso today. 5 RBIs in this one. I mean, there were bright spots, and we've talked about him for the Padres in this game. But when a guy has a 3-run home run and a 2-run base hit later in the game, 5 RBIs, today's player of the game, it's got to be Pete Alonso for the Mets in this one. So, unfortunately, it was kind of that series, right, where we ended up giving out our player of the games to non-Padres. But, hey, you get swept and it doesn't go well offensively, not giving us a whole lot of choice here. So, Pete Alonso, really, really, really good day for him, helping lead the Mets to a 11-6 win and a series sweep against the Pods. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Sunday, tell you what's going on around the major leagues.
Let's take a trip around the bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We take a look at scores today from around the major leagues. We've got a number of games still going on, number of finals, and we have a couple of games yet to begin. So let's begin with the final scores. Cardinals beat the Cubs 2-1 in Chicago. Pedro Pajes, a 2-run home run in that game for St. Louis. Cardinals win it 2-1. Nationals beat the Marlins 3-1 in D.C. Lane Thomas hit a home run in a third consecutive game to beat Miami. Orioles beat the Phillies 8-3 in Baltimore. Rays beat the Braves 8-6 in Atlanta. Rays got a 2-run home run in the ninth inning from Jose Siri in that game to take that 8-6 lead. Blue Jays beat the Guardians 7-6 in Toronto. Dalton Varsho, a grand slam in that game for Toronto. Brewers beat the Reds 5-4 in Milwaukee. Astros beat the Tigers 4-1 in Houston. Ronel Blanco threw 7 no-hit innings in that game, picked up the win for the Astros. Astros win it 4-1. Game 1 of a doubleheader in Minnesota today. Twins beat the A's 6-2. Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis hitting home runs in Game 1 of that doubleheader. Games going on right now. Pirates ahead of the Rockies in Colorado, 8-1 in the ninth inning. Giants and the Angels. In San Francisco, Giants leading 9-2 in the sixth inning there. Diamondbacks leading the White Sox 10-1 in Arizona in the fifth inning. Dodgers beating the Royals 3-0 in L.A. in the seventh inning. Mariners 2, Rangers 0 in Seattle, sixth inning there. One game yet to begin. Yankees and the Red Sox at 4 p.m. at Fenway Park. Marcus Stroman on the mound for the Yanks and Cutter Crawford on the mound for the Sox. And that is a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Sunday across the major leagues. By the way, just because I saw it pop up here, we had a comment on our YouTube stream talking about, I think what the commenter is referring to, and this is a technical question, but I do think there may be some other people out there that would like to hear this information. Referring to I think no secret you can listen to, games, all MLB games on, the MLB app. But the thing about that is that you can't hear the post-game coverage. They might play a little bit of it, but it cuts off at some point. So the solution to that, if you're somebody who does that, what I would recommend is, number one, listening to Padres baseball here on 97.3 The Fan or the Odyssey app. And you can always hear our full post-game coverage after the game if you listen that way, or watch us on YouTube. So if you're somebody who does that, well, I'm here to tell you there are other ways to listen where you can get the full post-game coverage, or full pre-game coverage, everything, if you just stick to 97.3 The Fan, the Odyssey app, or the YouTube streams. And that's the way to do it if you want our full coverage every day. You can't get that everywhere across all the different broadcast platforms. But if you stick to 97.3 The Fan, the Odyssey app, our video streams, you will get each and every word we say, both before, during, and after the game. So just a little bit of info there for you. Stick with 97.3 The Fan and the Odyssey app. That is the prime way to listen. Final score, Mets 11, Padres 6. We'll come back with more after this. Our play of the game, wrap things up, get you ready for tomorrow on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Final score here today, the Mets 11 and the Padres 6. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. It's another beautiful day for a ball game and Military Sunday at that. San Diego County Toyota dealers are proud partners of the Padres and supporters of San Diego's military community. Thank you to all military members for your incredible service. Tough one for the Padres, tough series for the Padres, no doubt about that, as they fall to 37-38 on the year, swept by the Mets this weekend in New York. They'll head to Philadelphia starting tomorrow. Well, in fact, they're heading there right now, but they'll start the series tomorrow. We'll have more on that game in just a moment. First, let's hear today's play of the game from this one.
What was the crucial play that determined who came out on top? This is today's Play of the Game, presented by Bill Howe Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
2-1, hit in the air to left center field. That's well struck. Merrill is back on the warning track, fielding for the wall, leaps up, gonna go. Luis Torrens, a home run. Let's get a little bit of space here in the bottom of the 8th inning. It's 8-6.
That was our play of the game here today. Yeah, the Luis Torrens, former Padre, hitting a home run in the 8th inning. The reason we picked that was because the Padres, right before that, had come back 4 runs in the 8th inning to make it a 1-run game. You felt like they had some momentum. You felt like they had a real chance to win this. But then Torrens steps to the plate to lead off the 8th against Jeremiah Estrada in the bottom half. And the home run, just like that, made it a 2-run game. Not insurmountable by any means, but it kind of took some air out of the balloon of what you just did, right? We always talk about it, how important shutdown innings are. The Padres didn't get them in 2 big spots here today, and it was sort of a big deal. More than sort of a big deal. It was a big deal. And I said it in the opening segment. The 2 spots where the Padres didn't get shutdown innings today really hurt them. They had a 1-0 lead after a half inning. Machado RBI single in the first inning gave the Padres a 1-0 lead. But then, in the bottom half of the first inning, Francisco Lindor, leadoff home run against Dylan Cease. Just like that, it's 1-1. And then a few batters later, after a single and a walk, Pete Alonso, 3-run home run. And just like that, before Cease records an out, it's a 4-1 game. So that was one lack of a shutdown inning. And then the other kind in the 8th inning, where again the Padres are down 7-2. They score 4 runs in the top of the inning to make it 7-6. Then you're looking for Jeremiah Estrada, who's been great and very, very reliable, to put together a scoreless inning to keep it a 1-run game, keep you right in it, keep some momentum on your side. Well, first batter there, like we just heard, Luis Torrens, the home run to make it 8-6, and that was just the start of the trouble for Estrada in that 8th inning. The Mets would end up scoring 4 runs on 5 hits against Estrada, so it went from a 7-6 game to an 11-6 game, and at that point was kind of out of reach. So, hey, we always talk about it, right? The shutdown inning, why it's so important. We saw 2 cases of it here today. Padres unable to throw up a 0 after they scored some runs, and that was part of the difficulties here today as the Padres fall 11-6. Taking a look at tomorrow, start of a 3-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies. Pitching matchup tomorrow: on the mound for the Padres, right-hander Randy Vasquez. On the mound for the Phillies, left-hander Christopher Sanchez. First pitch tomorrow at 3:40 p.m. here in San Diego. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show will begin at 2:40, and certainly hope you can join us then as the Padres continue this road trip to Philadelphia. As always, if you missed any of our post-game coverage, you can go back and listen to any or all of it on the Inside San Diego Baseball podcast with Sam Levitt. You can find that on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your podcasts. If you would rather watch our post-game show on demand, you can do that anytime you want on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel. Taking a look at the final totals in this one here today, the series finale at Citi Field in New York. For the Mets, 11 runs, 14 hits, 2 errors, they left on 6. For the Padres, 6 runs, 10 hits, no errors, they left on 8. Winning pitcher in this game, Tylor Megill, who improves to 2-3. Losing pitcher was Dylan Cease, who drops to 6-6. Time of game, 3 hours and 11 minutes, and the crowd at Citi Field in Queens, New York, 31,050. 54. Once again, first pitch tomorrow at 3:40. Our pregame coverage begins at 2:40. Until then, for our great studio coordinator, Frank Marchese, I'm Sam Levitt saying so long from inside our San Diego studios. Again, the final score here today, the New York Mets 11 and the San Diego Padres 6. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Padres Radio Network. Have a great rest of your Sunday.